I want every white person in this room who would be happy to be treated as this society in general treats our citizens, our black citizens. If you, as a white person, would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
I think we also have to understand that black Americans have faced barricade after barricade after barricade in front of them forever for voting. So to take a majority black district like Memphis and split it up, pull it into 3 separate sections so it goes into rural Tennessee, if you aren't familiar with the state, they're taking a black district and stretching it out so that the white voters overtake the black voters in those 3 districts. That's deliberately trying to make one party have no representation. It is an abuse of power. We should say that. This is not just a black voter problem, because if anyone thinks their vote should count, this is a problem. This is starting with black voters, but it'll carry on to all of us. The bottom line is Trump and the MAGA Republicans are losing. People are not happy with how they are running the country. So they are desperate to control the outcome of elections by stripping away their opponent's power piece by piece, particularly in the South, where they have the most control. We need a national ban on gerrymandering. It doesn't matter what party we have. Any law that limits who can vote, how they can vote, if their vote is counted, is wrong. We need fair, nonpartisan maps. Take a grid to the entire country if you have to. We shouldn't have what happened in Texas, in Florida, in Oklahoma, and yes, in California and Virginia. That should not be happening. It should be fair, and if you are someone that believes that your vote should count, you should be angry. You do not have to be a black American for this to happen, but you should be angry on behalf of black Americans that it's happening to them again.
The maps were drawn to maximize the potential Republican partisan advantage by winning and having a chance and opportunity to win all 9 congressional districts for the Republican Party.
So the argument he's making, this has nothing to do with race. He's acknowledging it's a purely political move. What do you make of what you just heard there?
Well, Justice Alito kind of it has given a playbook to lawmakers. Just call it partisanship, say the word over and over and over again. But we know that that is just a veneer. What happened in Tennessee was the intentional, purposeful dismantling of one district that provides black voters an opportunity to have voice in Congress. A district that is home to Memphis, which holds a special place in our country. It is the place where Dr. King gave his life, where he was assassinated for fighting for a better America, fighting for the Voting Rights Act, standing up for the powerless. So, I find that lawmaker's statement lacks credibility, and it is why we will see a lot of litigation this cycle. The base claims that this is all partisanship just will not hold.
Meanwhile, back at racism headquarters, I really like this video. This video is great. It's self-explanatory. It has a white male, when you see it, it's a white male sitting there and he's having you listen. And I would consider this guy an ally. You have to listen to it because it's fantastic. It's a voiceover of a man talking about why there is a voting act, the reason for it. And you let me know where the lie is. It's fantastic. Let's listen to it.
I am so fucking tired of white men cosplaying the apocalypse. The only fucking reason why we needed the goddamn Voting Rights Act in the first place is because of white men. I don't care that you don't see the value in it. Neither did your great-grandfather. And that's the fucking reason we have it. It got passed in the 60s. I am tired of it. I'm tired of pretending that the motherfuckers responsible for us needing it aren't alive. They're alive, and you call them grandma. So no, white boy, I don't care what the you think about the goddamn Voting Rights Act. I don't care. I don't care what any white person thinks about it. At all. Because the only reason we need any of this is because white people needed to be told in writing not to be awful. That's why. You guys don't like that part, but that's what laws are. They're telling you not to be a piece of It's very weird that we have so many laws surrounding race because white men won't be better. They won't be better. They won't do better. It doesn't matter what year it is. In the year of our Lord, 2026, we are still discussing the merits of black people voting because you are not different than your ancestor.
In 2026, black folks still have to come down to this legislature and beg for something that they rightfully were born to have, and that is a right to vote and proper representation. We live in a time where one of your colleagues can turn around and tell an audience of women and black men and women, more specifically myself, you need to shut up, boy. And you, instead of telling him and correcting him on the mic, you tell the crowd that I need to maintain order. As if we are the problem inside of this building. The people came and showed up in droves because you are trying to interrupt the flow of what they were rightfully deserved. And that is proper representation. Let me tell you what racism is. Racism is when you insert your privilege and you use it to push out your superiority against people who look like myself. And in the words of Congressman Cleo Fields, I wake up every day and I can't wash this off. They can't wash that off. And if you're going to vote and tell us that we should not deserve the right to have proper representation because of the color of our skin, that's emphatically wrong. In fact, it was St. Augustine who said that an unjust law is no law at all. Anything that comes out of this body that is in full support behind what Jeff Crow, because this ain't Jim Crow that we're dealing with now, we're dealing with Jeff Crow policies, is wrong. And one thing that I simply just cannot understand, Senator Miguez isn't here right now, but for God's sake, your last name is Miguez. Your people are marginalized people, and you sound as though you are in support of a bill that hurts and harms marginalized people. You got to make that make sense to me today. Single Democratic leader on this board, I applaud you. Because these same people, they think because they can come and eat, that you go and eat with them, that they come and smoke cigars with you, that they crack glasses. Wait 1 second.
No, you're going to listen to me.
All right, you go ahead.
You're going to listen to me.
Go ahead.
You're going to stay on the four corners of the bill. We're not going to talk. No, you're not.
Okay.
You're going off. If you choose to keep on talking about
it's
racism,
okay. You may not like what I got to say. I'm going to get off the mic. It's okay. I'm going to leave the mic anyway because I knew you were going to do this.
You can leave now.
All right, I will.
Thank you.
I had questions for you. I'm sorry.
No, he's done talking, Senator. He's done.
That's okay. You're going to beat on my rights. That's fine.
Go ahead, Senator Jenkins. You can make a statement.
But what is the position there on those bills?
Each and every one of those bills disenfranchises black voters and Democratic voters across the state of Louisiana.
I did not know that you had been told to shut up. I did not know that
the actual quote, Senator, was, y'all need to shut up, boy.
That is so offensive, and I do want to apologize on behalf of the Senate. I do want to apologize on behalf of the committee because that was so inappropriate, and I did not know that had occurred.
Confederates were so mad that they lost the Civil War and they lost their slaves that they've been fighting ever since to get them back. States are only supposed to redistrict after the census, and we haven't had one for 6 years. But thanks to SCOTUS, all of these states are changing their districts to get rid of minority votes. But what about California and Utah? The people of Utah voted on their maps, and they said this was fair. And when they were asked to change it by the oversized Oompa Loompa in the White House, the court said, go take a flying leap. California was voted on by the people. These red states, they didn't ask. They just did it. And it's very interesting to me that it's the same states that said, we're seceding from the Union for states' rights. No, they didn't. They said they left the Union because they were going to keep their slaves. And now they're working hard to keep the voice of the people from reaching their ears. And look, I know all of this started because of Louisiana there. But if we were to actually draw a map of Louisiana that favored Democrats, like people were complaining that Democrats were voting for a gerrymandered map, a map that really all it did was gave the voice to a majority black population. But 6 years ago, somebody over on Reddit actually made a gerrymandered map that favored Democrats. And you would get this, because the current map, before the SCOTUS ruling, the map still favored Republicans. You just had one Democratic district. that one Democratic district being majority black. And it's also interesting to see these two comments on that same thread, where they're saying the only reason their grandparents and great-grandparents and their parents voted Democrat was because they were still mad at Abraham Lincoln for taking away their slaves. And the reason these people are voting Republican now is because there was a party switch. And party switch, yes, it started in the 60s with Barry Goldwater and Richard Nixon, but it seems like Trump has completed it. It's a thing that happened. The same people that did this are doing this because they lost the Civil War. And it's also quite interesting that the party whose platform was to abolish slavery, which led to the Civil War, has now been taken over by the very same people who want their slaves back.
Dr. King, in light of recent statements of Senator Barry Goldwater and, in some cases, Richard Nixon, do you think there is a real danger of the Republican Party becoming the white man's party in this country?
I think this is a real danger, and I've talked with some Negro Republicans who are very concerned about this. I see trends and developments which will reveal that unless the liberals of the Republican Party take play a much more decisive role in leadership positions, this will become a white man's party. And I think this would be tragic for the Republican Party as well as tragic for the nation.
I need all the white conservatives in the room to realize that treating people like garbage and not paying them a fair wage is not going to get you into heaven. Have a day.
So that was Tennessee State Representative Justin Jones burning a Confederate flag today at the Tennessee Capitol with the phrasing, "We will not go back," underneath. As today, Tennessee's MAGA Republican Governor Bill Lee and the Republican legislature have signed into law a new congressional map that cracks the single majority black congressional district in Tennessee. It splits it into 3 sections and then dilutes those sections into 3 other majority Republican districts to basically eliminate the single black congressional seat that Tennessee once had. Additionally, the law also repeals an old law that made it mandatory that county election commissions immediately notify voters by mail if their polling place or voting district had changed because of redistricting. The new law says that county commissions only have to post a notice on their website if they have one. That's it. Prominent political scientist Norman Orstein called this Jim Crow on steroids, which is exactly what it is. It's a blatant attempt to dilute black voting power, and it's just the latest example of Republican racism. Louisiana did it on day one, as soon as the Supreme Court pretty much nullified the Voting Rights Act. Tennessee is doing it now, and we can expect to see it across states all throughout the South. This is the true face of the Republican Party. This is exactly who they are. It's time to fight back. Every single state, New York, California, Illinois, every single blue state needs to eliminate every single Republican congressional district possible. It's the only answer, because they have no shame. Republicans have no shame. They didn't even wait a minute. They didn't even wait a minute. And it all started with Trump in Texas. They started this whole gerrymandering, mid-census redistricting. So it's time to fight back, play by their rules, and get it done.
I have no doubt in my mind that the map's going to pass. If y'all can give us less than 0 seats, you would do it. Y'all do this under the orders of somebody that said the Civil Rights Act was harmful to white people, that it caused reverse racism. RFK said that black children are overfilled on antidepressants and that they need to be reparented on different farms, all of them. Pete Hegseth constantly brings Doug Wilson to the Pentagon to give a prayer service. Doug Wilson is the same pastor that said that slave owners were on strong spiritual ground. I don't have no belief in no morality on anybody that followed Donald Trump. If you wasn't with this map, you wouldn't be underneath this president. You wouldn't be in your party. You would stand up. You would stand against it. You would speak out about it. So as far as I'm concerned, if you here as one of these Trump Republicans, you already showed us who you are. You showed us what you want to do. And I believe the country as a whole is rebuking your party. Y'all are in a death spiral. That's why y'all have to redistrict. That's why y'all have to cheat. That's why Trump got to go to Texas and say he entitled to 5 more seats. It's because y'all know what y'all doing is abhorrent. We letting our people die in Iran based on false pretense that Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Kent say it ain't real. Y'all okay with all that. So I'm positive y'all gonna be okay with the maps. But the beautiful thing is, the children that y'all have made and the people that's younger than y'all don't support none of this racism that y'all want. The MAGA party is the last breath of the Confederacy. And I'll be happy to see millennials and Gen Z bury y'all. There will be no more of your party. The midterms gonna come, y'all gonna get wiped out. Trump gonna get dragged out of the White House, and I'm gonna love every second of it. Because y'all loved every second of the suffering that he caused to everybody in this country. And worldwide, we starve in Cuba. We bomb Nigeria. We holding Zimbabwe and Zambia hostage for their minerals. We don't want to give them aid support. The pro-lifers that say all life is special, y'all letting kids die of AIDS. What part of your Bible say that? Point out the scripture. I think everybody would love to see it. And we would love to see y'all in the midterms.
All right, the working class and especially the MAGA voters are frustrated. They are angry because of the gas prices. Majority are saying they cannot afford it. It's too expensive and they don't have the money for it. So what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear from you guys. Please subscribe because today we are talking about the issue that is affecting every America, gas prices.
The inevitable is happening. The thing we as black people have known all along about this administration in power, how our rights were being infringed on, how the country would spiral, how women's bodies would be controlled, how education would be gutted, and how the rich would get richer and the poor would get poorer. Because the only difference between this...
You and I and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, I campaigned for him, I mean, we're implicated in this for sure. But the question does present itself immediately, like, what is this? Was this always the plan? You don't want to be a conspiracy nut, but like, clearly there were signs of low character. We knew that.
There are aspects of his personality which are obviously not good and that we've mostly just chosen to overlook. You know, he's not a moral man. He's obviously not the greatest husband in the world. You know, cost of American lives isn't the motivator. It's just that Trump has moved on to other things because he has the attention span of a gnat.
And this.
And what American is this helping? Besides the industrial war complex, what I just don't know. I don't understand. So yeah, that's what our president's up to, and it's fucking baffling.
Isn't you had a change in morality or a different point of view. You're just now impacted. And what a spineless way to live. You say to yourself, I'm okay if marginalized groups are impacted as long as my positioning as a white person is unchanged in this country. We knew. So when you ask,
what does the black community see that we don't, that's allowing them to totally let go?
We saw you. We saw our parents and grandparents fight for their rights as humans. We saw how at every turn, the only thing people in America, white American men, and those white American women who feed into racism and the patriarchy want is capitalistic system where black people don't benefit, women stay in their place, the masses remain uneducated, and America stays white. So yes, we knew. MAGA voters are speaking out against Trump. Farmers are watching crops rot because of tariffs, federal workers losing jobs they thought were safe, veterans seeing benefits get cut. But none of this is shocking because the policy didn't change. Their proximity to it did. This pattern is as old as oppression itself. If we go back to the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, poor white and black farmers were in the same economic boats, exploited by the same landowners, crushed by the same debt systems. They actually started organizing together. The populist movement was building real cross-racial working class power, but The planter class got panicked. They did not want poor people joining up against wealthy people. So they did what ruling classes always do. They offered poor white farmers something black farmers couldn't have: social status, the feeling of being above somebody. Jim Crow wasn't just about hate. It was a political strategy to break solidarity before it became a threat, and it worked. Poor white Southerners voted against their own economic interests for generations, even until today, because they were giving the psychological wage of whiteness instead of actual wages. Fast forward to the New Deal, FDR's programs of Social Security, labor protections, the right to organize were genuinely transformative. But to get Southern Democrats on board, they excluded the jobs black people were most likely to hold: domestic workers, agricultural laborers, left out by design. White workers built generational wealth on those programs. Black workers were locked out altogether. So when someone says the government used to work for regular people, it did. Just not all of them, and just not all of us. And these are the same sentiments of MAGA today. Ida B. Wells warned us. She said, a country willing to use terror against black people had already proven it would use terror as a tool, period. The weapon doesn't retire once it's done with one group. MLK said in a Birmingham jail, he wasn't just frustrated with the segregationists, he was frustrated with the white moderates who thought they could stay comfortable while injustice ran its course. Injustice doesn't run its course. Frederick Douglass understood that freedom, if it wasn't protected for everyone, was just a loan. One thing we know about loans is that loans get called in. But in this country, if we had built and defended the political infrastructure to protect minority rights when black communities were screaming that these systems were dangerous, everyone would have protections right now and rights today. Now we're watching tariffs gut the same farming communities that cheered trade wars aimed at protecting them. Federal jobs disappearing from the same towns that voted to shrink government because the cuts were supposed to hit someone else. The tools they're using on immigrants, on black voters, and now the white working class Americans, those same tools are now pointed somewhere new. You cannot outsource your freedom to someone else's oppression and expect to stay free. The only way any of us stay protected is if the system is built to protect all of us. America is in a very precarious place. And if we just believe black people, if we just granted black people equal protections and rights and freedoms under the law without the need for us to be in this centuries-long fight, then maybe, just maybe, we all would have adequate protections and not fall into a despot running our country dry while enriching his helm of billionaires. You ask black people, what did we see that you didn't see? We saw our story and our history. Stay black.
The Republicans really haven't caught on yet that gerrymandering is not going to save them. They are doomed no matter what. When Texas started this whole shit and they thought that was going to get them more seats, it started backfiring, and now that is happening everywhere. The Republicans in Tennessee recently passed their new gerrymandering map right after the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. They're trying to eliminate the one single Democratic representative they have. And of course, the way they're able to get away with this is because they say that their gerrymandering is specifically for partisan reasons. It has nothing to do with race when they're eliminating black majority neighborhoods. But the Republicans have not learned yet that gerrymandering's not going to work because there is no district that is safe for them. And Ron DeSantis apparently hasn't figured that out either. Ron DeSantis recently signed that new map into law, the one that they want to use to basically eradicate a ton of Democratic seats. And it's of course already being sued because it's unconstitutional anyway. But from experts analyzing those new maps, they discovered that probably going to backfire and actually give the Democrats at least one more seat. Because the Republicans' plan is to, of course, carve out these districts and spread them out so there's basically no Democratic representation. But, as we have seen, they do not have enough safe districts in order to do this in their favor. Think about what happened last year in Miami. They elected their first Democratic mayor in 30 years. And the Republicans recently lost the Mar-a-Lago district to a Democratic candidate, which means that Republicans voted for that Democratic candidate. All over the country in these special elections for the last year, we've been seeing Democrats outperform, and Democrats have been winning seats by 20 points that Republicans won by double digits in 2024. We are seeing 30 to 40 point swings in the opposite direction. A perfect example of this was earlier this week in Michigan when a Democrat won a seat in their state Senate. Kamala Harris won that district in 2024 by less than 1%, and he won it by 19 points. They cannot gerrymander their way out of that. Gerrymandering only works if you have high enough support in certain districts that you can pull away some of that lead and put it to another district to drown out Democrats. But that doesn't work when none of your districts are safe. They'll be like, oh, well, this district is winning by 10 points, so we'll just take a little bit away from that one and put it someplace else where there's more Democrats. This district that you won by 10 points last time, you're now already losing. And that's happening everywhere. So in any single red state where the Republicans are trying to do this because they think it'll help them, it's just going to backfire. Which, of course, is just going to fuel all of their suspicions when the midterms are over. Of course, the Democrats somehow just magically, poof, did magical fraud. No, it's because the Republicans are such fucking pariahs right now that nobody wants to vote for them. And deep down, they know that, which is why they're holding secret meetings at the White House right now, preparing themselves for what happens when a Democratic majority takes over and there are investigations up the ass. But also, if the Republicans thought they were actually going to do well in the midterms, they wouldn't be trying to do this shit in the first place.
You could be Christian or you could be racist. You can choose God and you can choose love, or you can choose hate. You cannot choose both. I stand to agree with my friend from Knox County. If we're going to teach history, let's teach history. Some of our history is ugly in this country. And there are people over the years that have twisted and poisoned what the Bible says to try to justify an evil act. I stand as a member of the party of Lincoln that he founded. Slavery was, is, and will forever be an evil stain on our country's history. It hurt then, it hurts now, it lingers in the heart of every one of us. The amendment says that this has to be historically accurate and devoid of politically advocacy, that they're going to have to pick a video to teach about this. I don't know about the sponsor, but I know my friend from Knox County is going to be watching real close to see what that video says, and I will be too. Because if it's not historically accurate, if it doesn't talk about the evil of slavery and the struggles that our country have been through every day from then till now, because some person thought it was okay to sell an individual to another individual. It was evil then, it's evil now, it will forever be evil. This is not partisan. If you're on this floor and you are a racist, you cannot be Christian. You could be Christian or you could be racist. You can choose God and you can choose love, or you can choose hate. You cannot choose both. So surely to goodness we can stand together on this to say this should be historically accurate. But again, they're going to pick a video here to make it historically accurate. I certainly hope that they show the good, the bad, the ugly, the evil and the right as we move past that dark time, but remember it accurately.
This image is going to be in history books. A black Tennessee state representative named Justin Pearson was physically blocked from attending a meeting involving the district that he was elected to represent. We can see the sergeant at arms on the right there blocking the doorway, refusing entry to this state representative. This was a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing regarding a highly controversial redistricting plan. The sergeant at arms blocked Pearson at the door. He was kept outside and forced to watch the proceedings on his phone. The meeting was about a map that fractured the majority black 9th Congressional District, the last one in Tennessee, and the same area Representative Pearson represents. The redistricting plan, which unfortunately passed, carves Memphis into 3 separate majority white districts. Republicans even said the goal was to maximize partisan advantage to support the national GOP's congressional majority. Here's why this is so ridiculous. Memphis is 62.9% black. They're recognized as the largest majority black city in the United States. Now they have 0 representation because Donald Trump is terrified that he's going to lose the midterms.
Black members of the Tennessee House just had to watch their colleagues pass a new map that erases the only majority black district in the state.
Please clear out the balcony. Leader Lambert.
Black people make up almost 20% of the population in Tennessee, and now every single district in the state is majority white, which not only eliminates their votes completely, but it also eliminates the only Democratic U.S. House district in the state. This is a direct result of the Supreme Court gutting the Voting Rights Act. This is the entire reason we needed it in the first place. Also, if you know who this one white woman is who stood up with them and linked arms, please tell me, because that is what it means to be an ally. If you want more information about this, this is a great article. And also, if you haven't, please follow me on Instagram. The link's in my bio because TikTok has been weird lately.
Racism is alive and well. And every time we try to tell people racism is alive and well, they tell us no. But there's also another reason why this is happening. It's not just because they're being racist. They are doing this because the black community is the most reliable voting bloc for the Democratic Party. 86% we vote for Democrats. They are erasing our districts because they are trying to weaken the Democrats. So Democrats, are we going to be doing something with Illinois and New York? Are we going to be doing something? They started with removing DEI. Then they started to erase our history. Now they're trying to erase our votes. But like I said, there's racism at play, and they're trying to weaken the Democratic Party because the black community is the only community that is reliable, strong voting bloc for the Democrats. This is a cheat. That's all it is. It's a cheat. While removing representation for black people. So, white liberals, are we going to be calling, the DNC and asking them what the fuck they going to do? Asking for a friend.
Tennessee became the first state to get rid of its majority black district, and I need Latinos to clock in because not only are they getting rid of black votes, they're also getting rid of your vote. Representative Justin Jones put it perfectly with this image. This is a white supremacist move to disenfranchise black and brown people. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act by saying Louisiana's second newly formed black district was unconstitutional, several states are moving to try and get rid of their majority black district. And I believe the phrasing, getting rid of majority black districts, is being used on purpose by Republicans so Latinos, who have shifted heavily to the right, don't realize that they're also coming for their vote. Because as much as Latinos moved to the right in 2024 saying that it was because of the economy, we have to be honest, it also had a lot to do with anti-blackness. A lot of Latinos put their hopes and dreams, stupidly, on Donald Trump. But now that they've seen that Donald Trump is a liar and a swindler who is hurting our community, they're souring on Donald Trump. So Republicans aren't just moving to redistrict these maps before the midterms to dilute black votes. They're doing it also just in case Latinos stop voting Republican. So the Latino vote helped Republicans get into power, but now they've changed the rules to make sure the Latino vote does not get Republicans out of power. That's what I've always been warning Latinos about. They're using your anti-blackness to go after the black community, but in reality, they're taking away all the progress that the black community has made that we have all benefited from. And a lot of Latinos are still not being vocal about what's happening with these redistricting efforts because they still believe that this is just a black issue. No, this is a problem for all of us now. However, even with these redistricting efforts, remember, there are still 36 million Latinos who can vote in the US. And just in case you didn't know, even if you're registered as a Republican in the general election, you do not have to vote Republican. So if Latinos can step up and stop believing these white supremacist lies and actually unite with other communities of color, even with these redistricting efforts, we might still have a chance to win and put a stop to these white supremacist efforts. Please share this story because while Latinos and other people from marginalized communities who moved to the right and voted for Trump caused this to happen, there is still a chance for us to come together and stop it. This is still very much a developing story, so I'll bring you information as it comes in. And remember to follow for more.
It is racism. It's blatant racism. He said it, no, it wasn't considered, but it's blatant racism. If you could look at the map, then black people will not have representation in terms of ability to elect the person that they want. Don Davis will be gone. You only have two left, Congresswoman Bushey and Adams. So that's obvious.
Look at this. Today is Confederate Memorial Day. It's a legitimate holiday in the South, and it tells you something important. The Confederacy never fully disappeared. It actually just adapted. And look at this. These are actually state and local municipalities that are telling you that their offices are closed in observance of the holiday. After the Civil War, the South lost almost everything. Not just the war, their economy, their political power, and for wealthy slave owners, emancipation wiped out massive portions of their wealth. Check this out. It's believed, according to historians, that the average enslaver lost anywhere between 40 to 75% of his wealth after the Civil War. But Confederates had to regroup, and they had to create a new strategy. It was called a lost cause. It was a simple idea. Rewrite the Civil War, make it about states' rights, make it about heritage, anything but slavery, and then turn that mythology into public memory. And check this out. That's why hundreds of Confederate statues were built decades after the war ended. Not during the Civil War, after. But check this out. As much as we talk about Jim Crow controlling black people, a big portion of it was about reassuring white people that Southern white society and racial hierarchies still existed. But check this out. When black Americans started gaining political power again during the Civil Rights Movement, the strategy changed again for the descendants of the Confederates. So check this out. In 1965, America passed the Voting Rights Act. Black voter registration exploded throughout the United States, specifically across the South. So conservatives shifted their focus towards something new. They called it the Southern strategy. It was less explicit racism, more coded language. They would talk about states' rights, limited government, law and order, and traditional values. The language changed, but the political goal didn't. And they had an ally, and that was the evangelical church. People like Jerry Falwell, Bob Jones Jr., both with large schools and captive audiences. Not only did this messaging captivate audiences, but at the same time, thought this was something that God wanted. And these people voted en masse. They elected Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, people that espouse their religious or political viewpoints. Fast forward and America elects Barack Obama. And then suddenly, conspiracy theories explode. People start claiming he wasn't American, not legitimate, not one of quote-unquote us. But check this out.
Would not apply to those who are here illegally.
Instead of coded language, people say things directly. He does his 2 terms, and then we see
I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
Donald Trump. But the biggest shift wasn't his speeches, it was the courts. Even before he was elected, in 2013, the Supreme Court weakened Voting Rights Act in the Shelby case. Now in 2026, another ruling, making it even harder to challenge discriminatory maps, further gutting the Voting Rights Act. And almost immediately, southern states start redrawing maps.
You know, all we need now is the courts to overturn 14, and we can look at a new election.
They split up Memphis's majority black district, revisit minority voting maps, approve maps that only favor Republicans. We realized something. The Confederacy didn't come back wearing gray uniforms. They came back wearing suits, with degrees in African American studies, with a game plan on how to win. Because for them, war never ended. They just had to be more strategic.
Southern states are moving like lightning right now to eliminate as many black majority districts as possible.
Yeah, I think this comes back to racism. I think we can thank the Supreme Court for this decision and all the anti-DEI stuff that's going on around the country. We are just headed right back down the segregation road. I mean, the argument that the Supreme Court made, that Justice Alito made in his decision, was that we don't need to have these protections anymore because racism is a thing of the past. And then within hours and days of that decision, all of the Confederate states are rushing to erase black districts. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, they are all actively working to redraw maps to erase districts with black majorities. The Voting Rights Act was necessary because since the end of slavery, white America has done its very best to make voting as absolutely hard as possible for black Americans, saying nothing of their experience in everyday life.
This is political. This is not about race. As I noted, the district of Tennessee is going to go to a black Republican.
I'm actually so distressed for our country right now because really there are many ways that we can divide up our country. I think we should have been doing it from the 117th Congress on, when we had the John Lewis Voter Rights Act, when we had the For the People's Act, that made our maps more fair. And now we're at a position where we are literally taking a city like Memphis, which is a majority black city, and we are splitting it into 3 so that none of those black votes count. And they did it based on the census, and the census has racial, not political affiliations. And they've done it deliberately.
Lydia's made this point eloquently, and I don't want to step on her point, but we should be careful about equating something as synonymous as though minority representation and democratic representation are the same thing. They're not. And the court did not find that racism in America is over. What they found is that excessively voting or observing race to the degree that it discriminates is something that's constitutionally prohibited. It conflicts with the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. But there are plenty of African American representatives who are Democratic, who are Republican,
So I think that
and
you guys
discriminating
have
against
this
us
a
is
little
different.
bit backwards. The point is not solely to elect black representatives. It's to allow black voters to have their choice. So if their choice is a white representative, that is their choice.
Which is currently
it's
what
not
they
about
have
the.
in
It's not
Memphis.
about whether the black person goes to Congress. It's about whether the black voter has their rights respected.
Most of the issues in America today can be attributed directly to this country not punishing the South and the Confederacy enough. Growing up, I was always confused why, when going to visit my family in the South, I would see Confederate flags flying high. And it was understood that that meant it was always tied to a different history, a nostalgic memory of their heritage, and quite literally a different America. But that's treason right?
Why do you carry that flag? Because this is my heritage. My family fought to save their farm.
You're fighting so hard for this.
Why should they take it away? We got our rights too.
Well, they've already taken it away.
But we want it back.
Just keep it flying.
Keep it flying? And why do you want to keep it flying?
Why would anybody want to erase our heritage?
Mississippi, the Carolinas, Tennessee, Alabama, and Missouri, to name a few, are redrawing or have redrawn their maps to eliminate black voter representation, all with the aim of picking up Republican seats. An exercise of power they wasted no time enacting following the Supreme Court's ruling gutting the Voting Rights Act. These communities are being redrawn into political irrelevance. Looking at pictures from Tennessee last week, it looks like we are in Jim Crow America, and you couldn't tell the difference between 2026 and 1965. And based on the rigorous nature of this coordinated attack, they want just that. If you look at a map of the Confederacy, the states who voted against the Voting Rights Act, and the current redrawn district eliminating black voting rights, you'll see they're all the same. You'll see this is all due to this feeling that the South and the Confederacy will rise again. What that really means is white supremacy and black subjugation. There have always been two Americas, and this is why. The Civil War was never truly resolved. Reconstruction was abandoned. In 1877, the federal government withdrew its presence from the South and surrendered the region to those who had sought to destroy the Union. Because of that surrender, Confederate ideology survived within our laws and within our institutions. We have Confederates and KKK members and white nationalists serving in Congress. Specific hypocrisy defines the current political landscape. Red Southern states vocalizing the most intense desire for sovereignty are the same states that rely most heavily on federal funding to survive. They're all poor. These states consistently rank at the bottom of healthcare, education, and life expectancy. They stay afloat through massive transfer of wealth from blue states they claim to despise. The tax revenue from California's tech industry and New York's financial sector flows south. This is a rebellion subsidized by the same government these people are wishing to take down and dismantle. The air of the Confederacy is present in every voting booth. We are watching a surgical dismantling of black political power. Districts are carved up to ensure black votes carry the least possible weight. This is the resurrection of the grandfather clause. A country cannot find unity while housing an ideology it refused to defeat. The South was never deconfederatized. The door remained open for the same power structures to return in different forms. The people who walk through that door hold federal benches and write state laws. The Confederacy was never truly dismantled, not culturally, not economically, damn sure not legally. Until that reckoning happens, the nation remains exactly what Lincoln warned us about, a house divided against itself. The only solution is to vote. We need more black and Latino men to vote blue in these midterms than we've ever seen. A large percent of you voted red last time, and we see the impact of that. We're seeing the government mobilize to dismantle civil rights, voting rights, and to push us back to a time where we didn't have a voice or a choice.
So, are black Americans slowly losing their voting rights? That's the question. Black Americans are not losing their literal constitutional right to cast a ballot, but their structural voting power and legal protection against discrimination are being systematically eroded. Legal scholars and civil rights organizations view this as a slow structural rollback rather than outright ban on voting. The debate revolves around whether recent judicial and legislative actions protect the principle of colorblind democracy or deliberately dilute the political influence of minority communities. The legal erosion. The primary driver of the argument that black voting rights are being dismantled is the increment defaging of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 by the U.S. Supreme Court. The death of preclearance. In Shelby County versus Holder, the Supreme Court struck down Section 4 of the VRA. This eliminated the preclearance formula that required states with histories of racial discrimination to get federal approval before changing voting laws. The dismantling of Section 2 of Louisiana versus Carline 2026. In a landmark 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court severely weakened Section 2 of the VRA. The court ruled that drawing congressional maps to ensure black representation, that is majority versus minority district, violates the 14th Amendment unless there is proof of intentional discrimination. Writing for the dissent, Justice Elena Kagan warned that this creates an insurmountable barrier to proving discrimination, completing a demolition of the VRA. Also, the racial gerrymandering. With Section 2 weakened, state legislators are moving aggressively to redraw political maps. For example, diluting representation. States like Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, and Tennessee have advanced maps that dilute black voting power. Therefore, by using cracking or splitting black communities across multiple districts so they are minority in all of them, or packing or shoving as many black voters into a single district as possible, states can drastically minimize the number of minority preferred candidates elected to Congress. The impact is as follows. Voting rights group estimate that the elimination of the state majority minority district will cost the Congressional Black Caucus numerous seats, shifting the balance of power for a generation. So, access to the ballot box. Since the removal of the federal oversight, dozens of states have passed restrictive voting laws that disproportionately affect Black, Latino, and low-income voters. Also, strict ID requirements requiring specific forms of government-issued photo ID, which minority voters are statistically less likely to possess or easily obtain. Reduction in voting windows. Cutting back on early voting days and eliminating Sunday souls to the polls voting is a cornerstone of Black church mobilization. The mail-in restriction, limiting drop boxes, banning the distribution of water, food to voters waiting long lines, and making mail-in ballot harder to secure. Aggressive purging of voter registration rolls, which is frequently catches eligible minority voters off guard on election day. So, what is the counter? Alright, conservative lawmakers and proponents of these judicial shifts argue that Black Americans are not losing their rights and frame the changes differently. So in conclusion, Black Americans can still legally register and vote. However, the legal framework protecting that vote has been systematically dismantled by hollowing out the Voting Rights Act. The legal system has made it easier for states to minimize the mathematical value of a black vote. While the right to vote remains, the structural power of that vote to enact political change is weaker than it has been in decades. And that's basically what is happening. But one thing is for sure, if they go on to weakening these laws, in the next 10 years, 20 years down the line, voting for black people in America is going to be very hard. And that is the reality. What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear from you guys. Please subscribe to my channel.